students, this is Tulika Banerjee from Forensic Science Unit, SGTB Khalsa College, University of Delhi, presenting this module on behalf of Ritu Sharma, Assistant Professor, Sanchi, University of Buddhist Indic Studies, Bhopal. I am delighted to present this lecture on social problems in India, which is taught in BA second semester. Before we start our introduction of this chapter, let's look at the other modules we will study in this chapter. Module 1, Untouchability in India. Module 2, Poverty. Module 3 is regarding unemployment. Module 4 is regarding corruption. And the last module, which is module number 5, is regarding conclusion. Students, let us now start with our introduction, which will give a brief overview of today's lecture. India is one of the developing nations of the modern world. It has become an independent country, a republic, more than a half century ago. During this period, the country has been engaged in efforts to attain development and growth in various areas such as building infrastructure, production of food grains, science and technology, and education. The life expectancy has increased and many diseases have been under control. However, there are many areas in which Indian society is experiencing a variety of problems. Some of these problems have their roots in our colonial past, while others are related to demographic changes, socio-political conditions, and cultural processes. This chapter tries to acquaint you with some of the problems and the psychological factors involved in them. Untouchability is a menace and social evil associated with the traditional Hindu society. It is being practiced since times immemorial, and despite various efforts made by social reformers such as Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, and despite there being provision on abolition of untouchability in our constitution under Article 17, the evil is still in practice in our country. Students, now let me try to answer some of the questions you all might be having. The very first question, what is untouchability? Untouchability, in simple terms, can be understood as a practice whereby a particular class or caste of persons are discriminated on the ground of their being born in that particular caste, or on the ground of their being members of those social groups involved in menial jobs. The discrimination can be in the form of physical or social boycott from the society. Next, let us see who are untouchables in India. According to traditional Hindu Varna system, a person is born into one of the 4 castes based on karma and purity. Those born as Brahmins are priests and teachers, Kshatriyas are rulers and soldiers, Vaishyas are merchants and traders, and Shudras are laborers. Untouchables are literally outcasts. They do not directly figure into any of the traditional Varna system of Hindus. According to Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, untouchables form an entirely new class, that is the 5th Varna, apart from the existing 4 Varnas. These untouchables are not even recognized under the caste system of Hindus. Untouchability was also practiced as a form of punishment to the law breakers and criminals. They were socially boycotted for their misdeeds. There is another term nowadays used for untouchables, that is Dalit. Who are Dalits? Untouchables are also known as depressed classes, Harijans, etc. But today they are more frequently referred to as Dalits. In modern times, Dalit refers to one's caste rather than class. It applies to members of those so-called menial castes which are born with the stigma of untouchability because of the extreme impurity and pollution connected with their traditional occupations. They are considered impure and polluting and are therefore physically and socially excluded and isolated from the rest of society. Today, members of scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, that is SC/ST, are considered as Dalits and they are subjected to various forms of discrimination in the society. These people are generally associated with menial jobs such as tanning, skinning of hides, works on leather goods, sweeping, scavenging, etc. In the following section, we will see how society treats this class. Types of discrimination against untouchables or Dalits. According to National Campaign on Dalit Human Rights, that is NCDHR, there are various forms of discriminations being practiced against Dalits in India. These are prohibited from eating with other caste members, prohibited from marrying with other caste members, separate glasses for Dalits in village tea stalls, discriminatory sitting arrangements and separate utensils in restaurants, segregation in sitting and food arrangements in village functions and festivals, prohibited from entering into village temples, prohibited from wearing sandals or holding umbrellas in front of dominant caste members, separate burial grounds, no access to villages' common or public properties and resources such as wells, ponds, temples, etc. Segregation, that is separate sitting area of Dalit children in schools, bonded labours, face social boycotts by dominant caste for refusing to perform their duties. Our next topic is abolition of untouchability under Indian Constitution. In view of this objective, Article 17 was added to the Constitution. Article 17 reads as follows: untouchability is abolished and its practice in any form is forbidden. The enforcement of any disability arising out of untouchability shall be an offence punishable in accordance with law. Thus, Article 17 abolishes and forbids untouchability in any form. At the same time, it also makes it an offence punishable as per the law made by the Parliament. In order to fulfill the mandate of Article 17 of the Constitution, the Parliament enacted the Untouchability Offences Act in the year 1955. It made several discriminatory practices punishable as offences, although the punishment provided were rather mild and in their actual application even milder. Several lacunae and loopholes were found in the working of the Untouchability Offences Act of 1955, which compelled the government to bring about a drastic amendment in the Act in 1976. The Act was revamped as the Protection of Civil Rights Act. However, the menace of untouchability continued and Dalits were still being treated in a discriminatory way. Their socio-economic conditions remained vulnerable. They are denied a number of civil rights and were subjected to various offences, indignities and humiliations. Therefore, to counter these atrocities meted out to so-called Dalits section of society, the Parliament passed Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribes Prevention of Atrocities Act in the year 1989. The Act provided more comprehensive and punitive measures to deal with and to prevent discrimination and atrocities against the Dalits. The ultimate objective of the Act was to help the social inclusion of untouchables or Dalits into the mainstream Indian society. These already mentioned acts that I have already told you were made with good intention and with positive objective of removing discriminatory practices against untouchables or Dalits. But in actual practice, these acts have failed to live up to their expectations. Untouchability, present scenario. In our society, there still exists feeling of superiority of caste and birth. We can experience the practice of untouchability in everyday life around us. especially in rural and semi-urban areas of the country. Also in big metro cities, the inhuman practice of manual scavenging is still there. However, it can be said that the things are slowly changing. The mindset of modern generation is also changing. Today's youth, with modern education and globalized outlook, are viewing the social order from different perspective of equality and impartiality, and not from the religious or traditional point of view. A large section of the Indian society is suffering from poverty. Poverty is a phenomenon which is objective as well as subjective. Objectively, poverty implies a dehumanizing condition in which people are unable to look after the basic needs. And subjectively, poverty stands for perceived deprivation. Poor people lack the necessary resources and capacity to satisfy basic needs like food, shelter, health and education. They live under difficult conditions which are not conducive for development of their human potential. Poverty interferes with development in many ways. For instance, lack of or inadequate nutrition arrests mental development during the early childhood. A large section of poor children do not go to school. Even if they go, they become dropouts and fail to complete education. The causes, effects and solutions for poverty in India I will discuss here. Let's look over the causes of poverty first. The major reasons or causes of poverty include people don't get proper education, which leads to poverty. People are poor because they are illiterate, and they are illiterate because they cannot afford education. Illiteracy and poverty stays side by side. They both are the cause and effect of each other. In case where the resources and opportunities are limited and the population is high, there arises a situation of joblessness which ultimately leads to poverty. When a large number of people live in poverty, there is limited scope for development of country's economy. Some natural and environmental problems such as lack of rainfall, drought, etc. are the various reasons which often lead to poverty. There are many other reasons also like caste system, unemployment, etc. Now let's discuss the effects of poverty. The negative effects of poverty include poor people will always have to depend on others to survive. Low quality foods may lead to bad nutrition. Poor people have less liberty for the choice of profession. Poverty may affect the moral and self-esteem of people living in extreme hardship. Poverty also results in building stress, which ultimately affects the relationship of people. The lowest standard of living prevails among poor people. Our final discussion in this module will be on solutions to eradicate poverty. The solutions for poverty are: poverty can be checked by increasing the job opportunities. It will decrease the rate of unemployment, which ultimately results in decrease of poverty in economy. Government should take more steps towards charity, trust and have some transparency while spending money in those social institutions. There is a need for initiatives of paid leave to the workers. The education system should be reformed and initiatives should be taken to bring more children to school. Closely associated with the problem of poverty is the problem of unemployment, because when people remain idle, they become poor. If there are needs to be satisfied, then men must be employed in satisfying them. Unemployment leads not only to suffering and privation but also affects adversely the social organization, which is the main interest of sociologists. Defining unemployment, Karl Prabram has written that unemployment is a condition of the labor market in which the supply of labor is greater than the number of available openings. According to Fairchild, unemployment is forced and involuntary separation from remunerative work or the part of the normal working force during normal working time at normal wages and under normal conditions. According to Chapman, unemployment is of two kinds: subjective unemployment and objective unemployment. Subjective unemployment is caused by physical and mental diseases of the individual. Objective unemployment is of four types: seasonal unemployment, cyclical unemployment, structural, and the normal unemployment. In addition to these forms of unemployment, there may also be agricultural unemployment, technological unemployment, and educational unemployment. Though unemployment is universal, but in India it is more marked. The number of total unemployed youth with at least matriculation qualification is put about at 5 million. This included about 1.5 million unemployed graduates. A study undertaken by the Manpower Division of the Directorate of Employment Exchange, Ministry of Labour and Employment, of the pattern of unemployment among graduates showed that about 93% of the unemployed graduates seeking employment were men and about 7% were women. 48.5% of the unemployment graduates were BAs, 22.7% from BScs and 12.8% of BComs. Unemployment is also widespread among the professionally trained like engineers, doctors and other technically qualified people. No reliable figures are available about unemployment among the illiterate people, those who earn their bread through daily wages. The statistics maintained by the employment exchanges do not give any exact idea of the level of unemployment because firstly the employment exchanges cover mainly the urban areas, and secondly because all the unemployed people do not get themselves registered, and thirdly because some of the registrants are already employed and seek better jobs. Causes of unemployment. Economists have explained the causes of unemployment and its cumulative tendencies. They have distinguished between the frictional unemployment due to a change over from one job to another and the immobility of those who do not feel inclined to move away to a strange district to find work on the one hand, and unemployment due to more profound economic dislocation on the other. New inventions take jobs away from men before new jobs are created. Also, much unemployment is caused by business depressions which arise because production moves faster than purchasing power. Unemployment then represents changes in the business conditions which come more quickly than changes in population. In India, the problem of unemployment among the educated youth is assuming serious proportions. Earlier, the faulty system of our education has been responsible for it. We are admitting thousands of young boys and girls to the institutions of higher learning without any prospects of employment for them. Even the technical people like engineers, doctors and those trained in specialized jobs are without employment. Unemployment is a great cause of social disorganization. The crisis in Indian society today is largely a crisis of finding suitable jobs for the millions who join institutions aimlessly and come out of them only to suffer frustration outside and become deviant. Unless and until employment opportunities increase fast enough, poverty cannot be removed. Corruption refers to those transactions which involve undue benefits to some people or are not entitled for them. Such transactions make some people recipients of financial benefits, physical and social resources that make these people capable of exerting power over others and controlling the rewards and punishments for others. This is often reflected in the formation of a nexus between politicians and the criminals. Use of money to bribe and drawing benefits that are not feasible under the law of the land. Misuse and misappropriation of resources for personal benefits is creating a gulf between the haves and have-not. The use of black money and scams of various types that have been discovered in recent years clearly tell that corruption is adversely influencing the growth and development of Indian society. Major factors responsible for corruption. The most important factor is the nature of the human being. People in general have a great thirst for luxuries and comforts, and as a result of which they get themselves involved in an unscrupulous activities that result in monetary or material benefits. Moral and spiritual values are not given utmost importance in educational system, which is highly responsible for deterioration of the society. The salary paid to employees is very less, and as a result of which they are forced to earn money by the illegal ways. The punishments imposed on the criminals are inadequate. Our next discussion will be about the measures to control corruption. There are some specific measures to control increasing corruption. The Right to Information Act or RTI gives one all the required information about the government, such as what the government is doing with our tax payments. Under this act, one has the right to ask the government on any problem which one faces. There is a public information officer, or better known as PIO, appointed in every government department who is responsible for collecting information wanted by the citizens and providing them with the relevant information on payment of a nominal fee to the PIO. If the PIO refuses to accept the application, or if the applicant does not receive the required information on time, then the applicant can make a complaint to the respective Information Commission, which has the power to impose a penalty up to ₹25,000 on the errant PIO. Another potent check on corruption is Central Vigilance Commission or CVC. It was set up by the government to advise and guide central government agencies in the areas of vigilance. If there are any cases of corruption or any complaints thereof, then that can be reported to the CVC. CVC also shoulders the responsibility of creating more awareness among people regarding the consequences of giving and taking of bribes and corruption. Establishment of special courts for speedy justice can be a huge positive aspect. Much time should not elapse between the registration of a case and the delivery of the judgment. Strong and stringent laws need to be enacted, which gives no room for the guilty to escape. In many cases, the employees opt for corrupt means out of compulsion and not by choice. Some people are of the opinion that the wages paid are insufficient to feed their families. If they are paid better, they would not be forced to accept bribe. The political leaders have spoiled the society completely. They lead a luxurious life and do not even care about the society. People of India are not awakened and enlightened. They fear to raise their voice against anti-social elements prevailing in the society. Every society of the world has their social issues unique to their society. So does Indian society. Indian society is very rooted in religious beliefs. There are people of different religious beliefs such as Hindus, Muslims, Jains, Sikhs, Parsis, etc. These all adds to the socio-cultural varieties of the country. India's social problems are also rooted in the religious practices and beliefs of its people. Almost all forms of social issues and problems find their origin in the religious and cultural practices of the people of India. These social problems are developed in a long period of time and are still continuing in one form or other. Furthermore, India has witnessed several wars of large proportions. Several foreign invaders attacked India in its long history, among whom few made this country as their own and tried to force their socio-religious practices, which also deteriorated the social conditions. The long period of British rule crippled the country and had thrown it into backwardness. Thus, many such reasons may be cited for India's social problems, but the fact remains that we have these issues and only we can solve them. The social problems described here in this lecture deals with the different domains of life and are just tip of the social issues affecting our country. It is not possible to get rid of these problems so easily. Solutions to them require efforts of all concerned. Not only the government, but we as citizens of our country are equally responsible for the growth and development of our country. The solutions for these problems require inputs from different disciplines. The role of psychology is prominent as it deals with behavior. Modification of attitudes, feelings and pattern of behavior are significant. Psychologists can contribute by providing strategies for achieving these goals. Dear students, this is the end of our final module in which we have recapitulated our chapter about some of the social problems in India. I hope you all have enjoyed this lecture and gained valuable knowledge. I hope you all have understood the underlying concepts of this chapter. Do keep in mind what we discussed today. I'll be back with one more lecture in this series. If you want to learn more and enhance your knowledge, you may log on to our website www.cec.nic.in for MCQ, quizzes, LWARs, etc. Make sure you revise the modules frequently so that you master the topic well and take up the exercises. Thank you for your time today. I'll see you in the next lecture. Keep learning and goodbye.